You're listening to the RMPodcast, the official podcast of Red Moon Productions. Here are your hosts, Brandon Davidson, Keith Cheatham, and Sean Sebastian. Enjoy.
Another episode of the Red Moon Podcast, live every single Tuesday night right here on all your favorite social media networks, including that red-headed stepchild over there coming up from behind Rumble. That's right, we're continuing on Rumble, streaming live, and YouTube, and Facebook, and X, all of them. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Tuesday nights at 9. I'm one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside he's back, our normal new host,
Sean Sebastian.
And
he's back!
He's amazed.
I'm happy.
He's amazed.
I'm happy.
I'm happy too. I'm very happy that Sean is back. Still got a little bit of a gravelly voice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we gave him a horrific death last week.
We haven't done that in a while.
Yeah,
we haven't. We haven't,
we
but
did.
normally we still kind of come up with some type of story.
That's true.
Even if it's not a horrific death. I think we just honestly said he was sick last week.
Yeah, it's just.
I think we just told the truth.
Yeah. I think we were.
For the first time ever, we told the truth.
I mean, look, as long as we've been doing this show, you can only count on it maybe once every 100 episodes.
Yeah.
Then we get there eventually.
Not very often.
Yeah. But no, I do want to give a special shout out.
Special.
Two, I guess. But I'll let you do yours. Happy birthday, Mom.
Aww.
Not today, tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
It's tomorrow. But we're doing a live show tonight.
Tomorrow.
So, that's right. And our moms were born on the same day. Surprise,
Which means,
surprise.
happy birthday, Mom!
Oh, it was so sweet.
She's not watching this right now.
Yeah, she's not watching.
She'll watch it later.
And even then, she'll probably be like, he's such a
Maybe she'll watch it.
goofball. I don't know why I had him.
Shouldn't say this on the show, I guess, but I don't think my mom watches me.
She doesn't.
She doesn't watch.
She doesn't.
She's proud of you.
She is proud of me.
She's seen you enough in your lifetime. Although my mom would always love to see more of me.
Well, the Kelsey's mom, she watches them.
She does?
Kelsey, the Travis and Jason Kelsey's mom, yeah.
Yeah,
but they're professional.
She watches them.
Well, I was going to say,
she watches them.
Look,
you're you.
You're supposed to love your kids no matter how successful they are.
If we win an Emmy,
or unsuccessful.
my mom has asked on several occasions. She's like, where can I watch you all? I would like to tune in. And I've told my mom on several occasions how. And my mom's just like, I ain't going to mess with that.
That's more or less.
Because
like,
I'd have to leave the show right now and go to their house,
turn it on for them,
and get them to. I could send them a link, but they would want to cast it to the TV. They don't want to watch it on the iPad. You know, they want to watch me on the big screen.
My dad watches sometimes. He uses his iPad for everything. He's constantly on that thing.
Well, and they do too. Yeah. They're on theirs, but they also have the TV.
He knows enough.
Are they using Are they using the original iPad?
No, they get like. They don't ever get the newest, but I mean, my dad has his. I think
my mom's got a Pro.
Oh, nice.
The big iPad. Pro.
Wow.
But
okay.
they do she'll do keeping the bills, track of that, and on there. And
that's like their
course,
laptop.
I think my dad has the 2016 iPad, so I mean, it's not obviously it's not super old, but it's also not that new.
I also think I wore out my welcome with regard to them viewing anything I make since Solid Gear.
Yeah,
from way back in the day.
They were like, we're tired of watching garbage. We don't want to watch them anymore.
I wasted too many opportunities where I was like, no, let's watch it. And
you have to watch this.
Yeah, it was
like
the
the boy who
thing
called
ever made.
Wolf. It's like now that you make something decent, they're like, oh, we don't believe that's actually going to be any good.
I always give my parents credit that they were honest with me at a young age, and they were like, if it was crap, they told me. They didn't quite put it in those. Sometimes they did.
Yeah.
But they definitely told me.
You could have done better, son.
Yeah, this is not entertaining. We don't want to watch that.
They brought
That's
up
what they
valid
would
points.
say, and I'm like, all right.
They brought up valid points, like how come every character's played by Keith? Because normally, in a movie,
that's true.
And I would say, Mom, Dad, where's the budget?
This is what I got to work with.
This is all I got.
Yeah. And then you'd be like, well, I don't have any other friends, so I have to get Keith to play.
That's it.
Then you got to high school and got other friends. So
we
26
tried,
years
I think,
could
with
happen.
Tristan once, and then
was
Logan.
that Police Chase we tried with him?
No, That was just.
Oh, we did The Dead with Tristan. Wasn't he in The Dead? I thought he played the grandpa in the bed.
No, that was you.
It was me. No, that was the original The Dead. The remake, because then we tried to do a remake that we filmed one. We filmed one scene. One scene.
Red Moon was doing remakes before.
I was gonna say you're getting on Disney for doing the remake.
We did one scene, and I could have swore Tristan was in the remake for that only scene.
We have so many movies where it was one scene.
I think he
you're
was the
right.
Blueberries.
Police Chase.
I don't remember. It was one of those.
Police Chase we did try to do with him.
Okay.
But none of these came to fruition. These are all failed projects.
Oh, yeah.
It's
we're
a
talking about
litany
stuff
of our history.
Well, Solid Gear was a complete movie. It wasn't good, but it was complete.
I guess you could say that. But then there was also...
For the full 20 minutes it existed.
Logan, he helped out with the Destiny trailer, and all I remember with him was he would... Hope is lost. It was so good. So shout out to Logan, too. But no, happy birthday to our moms.
Our mammies.
Celebrating their birthdays tomorrow.
Beautiful
Love you,
birthdays. Beautiful birthdays.
Love you, Mom. So hopefully maybe you'll watch just this segment of the show. Because now we're gonna switch gears.
Switch them.
We got two major reviews.
I know we're supposed to switch gears.
No.
I literally pulled up my calendar, and I don't know what I have her... I don't know if it's going off of a year. I don't know what I put in there, but it says Mom's 71st birthday.
Whoa!
She is not that old.
How many? She was born twice a year
on
for
my
a
calendar,
couple years.
And I'm just like, whoa, I should probably fix that. My mom's gonna beat me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, no,
Anyways,
what's gonna
go
happen
ahead.
is you say that, and then you're gonna go to her, and she's like, I am. And you're
Yeah.
gonna be like, I didn't know what age you were, Mom.
My dad
know.
is 71. He'll be 72 in November.
Well, how old is your mom, Keith? Do you know?
I thought they were about the same
She's
age.
close, so maybe, yeah.
Is that the Facebook one? Does it have
no,
the little
no.
present by it?
Oh, maybe it is.
You just didn't realize you were that old.
Yeah.
Probably. That's what it is. Actually, I figured that out the other day. Not that I was that old. There was something that I was just like, man, I'm really old now.
Oh, the 90s still feel like it was like 10
it is
years
the Facebook
ago.
one. Sorry, Mom.
When people
Outed
say
your
like,
age.
oh, this was like 30 years ago, and I'm like, yeah, back in like the 80s or 70s. And it's like, no. 30 years ago was the 90s.
The 90s.
That's insane.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I had that not something similar. I saw like this promotion for like it was like 5 bands together. Def Leppard was the headliner. And
Yes.
like there was like Heart, Cheap Trick,
Yeah.
Steve Miller Band.
Steve
was
Miller
yes.
Band.
And
Yeah.
it was all these bands
They're
like
touring
man
together.
And I was like, this would have been amazing 40 years ago.
Yeah. Now they all sound like me.
Yeah.
getting over some stress.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're all touring together. It's like I guess that's how they have to do it now. It's like they're not good enough anymore to have just like Def Leppard by itself. You have to have like 5 of these old bands.
Yeah.
Of these,
No,
these,
they're literally Def Leppard.
yeah.
yeah.
It's like you got Blind Leopard, Deaf Leopard.
Yeah.
It's like their drummer only has one good arm, and that's
Yeah.
getting old.
Yeah.
So he can't. There's no way he can still play.
He's the only one
man.
that's hanging in there.
Yeah.
He's
He was
only
the
one-
youngest of the
Yeah.
band.
Yeah.
And that's what's keeping him alive right
Yeah,
now. He's like, that's all I
he's
got.
the youngest one. He's
Yeah.
60 something.
But no, I do want to switch some gears to some somber news before we get into, yes, our double reviews, because we got a Best Picture Oscar nom review
Yeah.
and the latest release, which happened to bomb. And we probably could have passed it up entirely and not reviewed it, and nobody would know.
Hey, it came in #1 at the box office.
Yes, with a whopping $18 million.
Number one against what? Though?
Yeah.
Nothing. It was it. It was
and it
its
still
opening
didn't make
weekend.
me any money. Like,
Yeah.
But
18 million, man.
I wanted to bring up the somber news because we're not going to talk about it much later in the show.
Oh, yeah.
And that happens to be that Carl Weathers has passed away.
Yep.
It's a big loss this past week, starring in Rocky and several other notable films.
Predator. Happy Gilmore.
Oh man, the Happy Gilmore,
Yeah.
the memes you all were throwing around the
great.
day it happened. I mean, I couldn't help but think he was smiling just at us sharing those.
He's up in heaven with Lincoln and that gator that
That's
ate his
it.
hand. So,
Yep.
And one more recently, he's the Mandalorian. He's been
Oh,
a
yeah.
popular character
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
that. So
Disney's probably what killed him.
yeah,
You know,
Working for Disney.
I think you might be onto something there because Gina Carano came out and she shared her words of compassion.
She didn't come
for-
out. She's
No.
straight.
She came out
but-
talking about Carl Weathers passing.
Yeah.
She's straight.
Yeah, I'm just messing.
But she
She-
did also
she did
come out
say-
with some other big news we're going to talk about in a little while
yeah.
about suing Disney because they killed Carl Weathers.
Yep.
Kidding. But no, it was a sad loss. Definitely. That was Friday, wasn't it?
Yeah,
That
yeah.
happened. So terrible way to start the weekend. But
Yeah.
getting on, I say, social media and tons of well wishes and just sharing memories of his many performances throughout the years. Definitely left us with a good legacy. And as Gina Carano even pointed out, just he was always kind to her and to, as far as I could tell, anybody he met.
The Sylvester Stallone, that video.
Man.
That man, he had nothing but amazing things to say about him.
I haven't seen that.
It was very, very done. Very well done. Very good.
Yeah. He just talked about when they hired him for Apollo, how he thinks like the movie just wouldn't have worked as well as it does without him as Apollo.
Yeah.
So,
man. But now to turn on to the reviews of tonight's show.
they don't turn me on.
Well,
Maybe the review does.
it always turns me on. I love these reviews, Keith. Ooh,
Oh.
shiver up my leg. Alrighty, let's move right into it. Our first review of the night, Argylle. Let's get into it.
While Oscar season is upon us, and we do our best to review the Best Picture nominees, we haven't forgotten about new releases. This week's big release, coming in number 1 with a whopping $18 million against a $200 million budget, is the latest film from Matthew Vaughn, most famous for the Kingsman franchise. Argylle is an action spy film with a Romancing the Stone style plot that does have an admittedly solid twist, as espionage novelist Ellie Conway, played by Bryce Dallas Howard, finds herself thrust into the midst of real-world espionage. When Ellie's book mimics real-world events and an evil spy organization known as the Division begins to hunt her down, believing she has the ability to predict the future, her only ally is Aiden, played by Sam Rockwell, a spy and former agent of the Division who wants to help Ellie and bring the Division down. Argylle begins as a clever and entertaining film full of Vaughn's DNA, blending action and humor with extravagant set pieces and bombastic fight choreography. The movie feels very much in the same vein as Vaughn's Kingsman films, using the fictional story of Agent Argylle, played by Henry Cavill, as a plot within the film created by Ellie to contrast the film's real-world spies, such as Aiden and the Division's evil leader, portrayed by Bryan Cranston. This does create a unique and clever plot setting and apart from something like Romancing the Stone. It also provides plenty of humor and potential for plot twists that unfortunately never stop. And herein lies Argylle's biggest problem. What starts as a humorous and fun spy romp with a unique take on the genre descends into near constant chaos. Vaughn, who has proven repeatedly with his films that he loves excess, reaches the pinnacle of excess in this movie. Not just excess when it comes to set pieces or fights, but in the wild plot with twist after twist until the story feels overly contrived. Instead of building its story and characters and letting them breathe, each act adds a new plot twist. And by the movie's end, you're no longer surprised as much as rolling your eyes at the next ridiculous idea. Throw in tons of moments where plot is told rather than shown, and obstacles are solved just for the sake of resolving them with no clever resolution, something multiple characters even joke about in the film, and the movie ultimately goes from solid entertainment to trite over the course of its 2.5-hour runtime. Argylle has clever ideas, but Vaughn ultimately fails to execute any of them, and instead elected to amp up shock factor that never lands. It's a movie that definitely thinks itself more clever than it actually is, and while there are still entertaining aspects to the movie, its story and emotional investment into the characters fall apart. I give Argylle 2 out of 4 stars.
Argylle. Got Argylle. I did a speech to text earlier, and I read that word.
Yeah.
And it went Argylle. So I'm like, Siri can't even pronounce Apple's own movie right.
Wow.
I mean, come on. But no, I completely agree. 2 out of 4 stars.
Yeah.
I was going... Keith, you said it coming out of the theater, and I think you said it best. It started out okay.
Yeah.
Definitely not a 4-star movie.
I started out at least around 3, and then it just
I did
kept
too.
dropping.
It dropped precipitously throughout the rest of the movie. And I mean, I was I'd say hour into it. And I'm like, I'm still into this.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see where this goes.
Yep.
Even through the main, I'm not going to give the plot away completely, but even through the main twist that they pull on you, I didn't think it was completely out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'm still buying this. I'm on board. But then they just continue to get so far-fetched, so convoluted. They keep adding in narrative beats throughout that try to make it seem like it's even more of a this highly structured, plot-driven, movie that just, it's nonsense after nonsense. And it just, unfortunately, does not pan out in the end.
Honestly, I said it in the review, it's a movie, and Vaughn himself as director, think itself for himself way more clever than they actually are. It's a gripe I've had with a lot of movies in the last year, especially when we talked about Cronenberg's last Chair movie. I'm tired of directors who think they're so much smarter than the audience and so much more clever, and they're like, oh, look at what I did. It's like, no, what you did was dumb and it's garbage. It's not clever.
No, absolutely. And especially when you consider I like the fact that you brought up Cronenberg's Chair movie.
Crimes of the Future. Crimes of the Future. That's
Is it of the future?
Yeah.
And I'm like, to me, the other thing that this movie gets wrong, that one's just so far abstract.
Oh, that one's worse than this one. I'd watch Argylle again before I ever watched that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But this, where I think they have a problem, and this is what I see a lot in Hollywood, is one, they are so stuck on woke narratives. They have to have these details that are layered into the story, and there's nothing necessarily too woke in this movie.
It's not overt,
It's not overt. I mean, there's subtle hints here and there, other than your main character has to be very acrobatic in ways that just seem completely unrealistic. And I'm just like, they can't think outside of the box anymore. They are restricted to have to hit certain cues with certain social messaging that they can't actually think in such a way creatively that they can go down those avenues anymore. Because all of those, it's the same thing as watching anything from 20 years ago, and whether it be a raunchy comedy, and saying, oh, they'd never get away with this anymore. And the industry, Hollywood, will prop that up as, oh, well, that's because we've grown. That's all juvenile, senseless, behavior. We're far more, we've evolved beyond that. We're far more sophisticated now, but it's not. And you see these movies that continue to portray themselves as such, and they completely miss the mark. Completely.
And a big problem I have, just outside of whether anything's woke or anything like that, is I feel like Vaughn is very quickly becoming, Matthew Vaughn, a one-trick pony. It's like, you have plenty of directors who have a unique style. Wes Anderson, Quentin Tarantino, even Scorsese. We talk about, that all the time. They have a unique flair that you recognize when you see a movie. A Nolan movie is a Nolan movie.
Yeah.
But they still try to make things unique enough from each movie that while it has their DNA in it, not every movie is the exact same movie. From The Kingsman on, everything Matthew Vaughn does is the same crap, and he just gets more excessive and ridiculous. It's like, I love the first Kingsman movie. It's fantastic. Watching this, the hallway fight with the smoke and the choreography, her ice skating in the oil, spoiler alert, I guess.
Gosh,
it was just, it was terrible.
Awful.
It wasn't just this stylistic fighting, because that is fun to watch. It was just ridiculous and dumb, and the CGI, there's a $200 million budget. And she looked terrible. You could tell she was the CGI figure going through the oil.
The oil doesn't stick to anything.
No.
And the guy sticks his hand in it, and it's not on his hand.
It's like it doesn't get on her at all.
No.
She's not covered in it one bit.
No.
There's one scene where she's on one knee, and when she gets up, I looked, and her knee, her dress, because the dress goes past her knee.
Yeah.
None of it has oil on
They
it.
try to throw a couple of little black smears on people's faces.
That's it.
To make it believable. But that was pretty terrible.
Sean, what about you? What'd you think?
I came down on 2. I told Keith exactly we're all on the same page. At the beginning, about 30 or 40 minutes into the movie, I was like, this is solid 3 for me.
Yeah.
It wasn't until, of course, the twist, I kind of felt like when she was seeing a certain character in the mirror, then I decided I think she's going to be the person.
Yeah.
So when that twist happened, it wasn't as big of a surprise.
Yeah, it's a little predictable.
Yeah, but I would actually say up until the point where they go to the Keeper of Secrets and meet the Egyptian lady, until that point, I thought everything was very well done. In fact, even just before that scene when they're dancing,
I like that.
And he says, the hardest mission of my life has been not telling you that I love you.
Yep.
I was like, oh wow, now we're we went from funny action, you know, Mr.
We're
and Mrs.
getting
Smith
into the
kind of
sentimental.
thing. Now we're getting into some serious emotional stuff.
Yep.
And I dug that. But then it was like, immediately after that scene with the Keeper of Secrets, it just went off the rails.
Yep.
And that was when I invited my dad to go see it with me, and like even he was like not somebody that normally criticizes a movie or even voices an opinion about a movie, especially when I paid for the ticket. He usually he's just like, "Oh yeah, that was great."
Yeah,
you know.
thanks.
No, he was just like, "What happened to that movie?" Like at the end, like it was just it went off the rails, literally. But I enjoyed the movie. I thought where it was going looked like it could be very interesting. But I think you're right. He has Matthew Vaughn has definitely turned into a Guy Ritchie that you know, like that's a Guy Ritchie film. Like you can tell, but he's lost that uniqueness throughout and I think I'm getting the director right. Guy Ritchie did The Gentleman,
Yes.
and all that, Yep. So Snatch,
In fact,
and
it
all
was
that.
funny because The Gentleman was the first movie I mentioned to Keith walking out of the theater.
he thought Matthew Vaughn had done
Matthew
that.
Vaughn did that
Yeah,
because I was
no,
like,
yeah.
I kept trying to think like, there's no way the only good movie he has is The Kingsman.
Yeah.
Like, but it is.
Well, so critics will also say X-Men First Class, but I didn't care for that one either.
No.
yeah, same.
But Guy Ritchie, like The Gentleman was good, but it wasn't as good as Snatch. And what was the other one he did after Snatch? He did another off the wall one that had I thought it had Brad Pitt in it again. But anyway, he's got that.
Yeah.
He's got a style that you kind of watch his films and it's got that feel.
Yeah.
Like Nolan and like Wes Anderson but he has also. His movies are all starting to just feel the same now. There's no uniqueness.
Well, it's like the uniqueness ends up being how much more over the top. And
Yeah.
it's not creative. Like, even in Kingsman, you could somewhat say some of the CGI in that is dated because of the time.
Yeah.
This one for its budget and when it's released, it doesn't have that excuse.
And even the
And
lady with the legs for the swords for
Oh,
legs
it
was
looks
more
phenomenal,
believable and
yes.
it looked better than this.
And again, that right there adds nuance to the character.
Yeah.
Whereas in this, there was a lot of a lot of tell, don't show.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And so much of it was baked into the plot is going to be the character.
Yeah.
This is what we're going to develop throughout the film instead of actually having the story that centers around this eclectic cast of characters.
Or they solved so many problems with non-solutions and
True.
then made jokes about, like the first time when they're on the roof and he grabs the bar and blocks the door, he's like, "Oh, that was convenient. That was funny."
Yeah.
But
Yep.
then like he does that like 3 more times in the movie. It's like, okay, it's not funny anymore. That every situation they need to get out of, he's like, "Oh, well, this is just very lucky and convenient."
Yep.
It's
Well,
lazy
and
writing.
actually, the scene that led up to that, I was willing to give a pass until after I saw the whole movie.
Yeah.
And the scene is right before they go out in the hallway, and he's sitting there telling her how to stomp on a guy's head. He's like,
Yeah.
"You just,"
Yeah.
it's like you just do the twist,
The
and
twist.
like
Yeah.
the whole time that's going on, I'm like, okay, you're trying too hard to be funny right now.
Yeah.
Like this is drawn out.
Yeah.
These guys would obviously already be in the hallway, like rampage, like rummaging through the room next to you, and,
Yeah.
and then running in there and gunning you all down. Like there's no way it would give you this much time. And then I was willing to forgo it and let it go because after it was over, I was like, okay, well, we moved on from that.
Yeah.
You know, one little silly bad scene's not going to... No, then there's just like a ripple effect like later
And
in the
even
movie.
that scene, if the rest of the movie had been good, would have had a payoff at the end when that comes back into
Yes.
play. But at that
They
point, I
made
was,
it into a joke.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
But
So-
I honestly thought he was telling her that to occupy her and keep her busy while he took all the.
That's what I thought,
I thought he
too.
knew she couldn't do it, so she'd sit there for 5 minutes and
Same thing.
try.
Same thing.
while he took
Yeah,
everybody
that's
out.
what I
but
thought it
no,
was
I
going
mean
to
it was
be.
like
And that's what played out, but it was just funny because I'm like, yeah, you didn't think it was going to turn into something useful, and then when it does,
yeah, when it comes back.
it's a joke. And
Yeah.
it's like there were so many payoffs. Spoiler alert,
weak
I'm not going to say
payoffs.
who, but the cat comes in and scratches out some eyes, and it's just like,
It's
really?
it was just
Like,
lame,
too,
yeah.
It was too convenient, too on the nose.
Lame and lazy.
Yeah.
That's how.
And
I
then
felt
of
by
course,
the end.
if you stay for after the credits, there's something that goes back to one of his other films.
But I don't know if
And I'm like,
we were
what-
talking about that because then it comes in as like the movie based on the book. It's like, so is that supposed to connect or is that just an Easter egg?
Either that or they're setting it up for an Argylle too.
That too, but I don't think so
right.
because it's
or
going
is
to flop.
it? Yeah, somehow. I think they were setting it up for that. I mean, but there's no hope of there being a number 2 after.
I don't
hope
think
not.
they don't continue on because I don't think it's
I
going
don't
to
think
make
it
any
can.
money.
It's a flop.
18 million off a $200 million budget. They're not going to get close to
And,
making money.
We're going to talk about this a little bit in headlines after we do our next review. But this is Apple's like 3rd in a row loss at the box office.
Yeah.
Because Napoleon didn't do too hot, and definitely Killers of the Flower Moon, doesn't matter how many Oscar noms you get.
Yeah.
It also
They didn't
failed
make money.
miserably.
Yeah.
So
And it's funny, you see each of those are a big name director. It's like Apple's attaching stuff to Scorsese, Ridley Scott, now Matthew Vaughn, who's I mean, he's not got the prestige of those two, but
you
still.
also look
he's an name. He's
Yes.
a trending kind of name.
and you
now,
look at all the people. I mean, you had this with Henry Cavill, Sam Rockwell.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, look
then
at the
you had
cast and all of them,
Napoleon
yeah.
with
Joaquin,
Phoenix, and then Killers of the Flower Moon with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Well, pretty
Robert
much
De Niro.
everyone
I mean,
Scorsese ever works with. So.
Yeah, right.
right. But it is. It's like they're going after who they believe are not only going to be critically acclaimed, but somehow going to give them street cred in this new venture that they're starting with their studio.
And honestly, none of the, I mean, Napoleon I like for the most part, but none of the movies are that great when you're thinking of like prestigious movies.
Yeah.
No.
Well, they tapped, Hanks for that Greyhound movie, and it wasn't any
You're
good
right.
either.
Yeah.
That was a straight to streaming movie, but that was I thought it was pretty abysmal.
No, well, and that's the thing. They're trying to capture these notable, these are the ones we can go after because we know that they're going to draw people in and they're going to subscribe to see these.
They got
movies.
Hanks and Spielberg doing a World War II bomber film like about the planes.
Yeah.
And it's the same guys that wrote and put together Band of Brothers, which was fantastic.
Yeah.
But me and Amelia's watched the first 2 episodes of Masters of the Air, and it is nowhere near
You're
as
talking about
good as Band of Brothers.
Austin Butler.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just.
Well, and I'll be honest with you. I hate to say it. As sad as it is, you couldn't see a Band of Brothers nowadays.
No.
There's two, because again, you're having all white male cast because, World War II was fought with white males. Heaven forbid we actually tell history. But you have
They had an
that.
African-American regime. It
Well,
was small.
I'm not discrediting them. I'm just saying,
that's why I'm
if you have any movie that comes out with the majority all white cast,
being facetious,
you're going to be
that's how Hollywood would be.
Right.
Like just like the movie on Netflix with the Black Outlaws, that they weren't all together at one time, but they put every single African-American outlaw that
that's
existed
the issue
together.
too, is that you ostracize, or now we overcompensate.
Yeah, they do.
And that's the problem, is you can't tell a good story anymore because they have to have their social justice message, and they'll say, well, we could tell just as good a story. It's like, no, you can't.
Speaking about agendas and the failings of Hollywood, you want to get into the Oscar nominee?
Might as well, because we've already reviewed. This will be our 5th one of the Oscar noms. We still have 4 to go of the 9 that are, or 10. There were 10 nominated this year, I think.
Was there?
I think there were.
I thought there might
Maybe
be.
this was our 6th. I can't remember. All I know is we'll look that up while we're playing this review.
Playing the review.
But here is our review of a French-made film. Oh crap! Anatomy of a Fall. I was about to say.
I didn't know you forgot the name of it.
I did.
I just tried to say something else.
Okay, because there was an issue where when I was looking this up to find the poster, it had the French name attached to it.
Oh yeah.
And it was like, and I can't remember it now.
D'on Shoot. Anatomy d'on Shoot.
It was like Anatoma d'on Shoot. Yeah, I don't know. But here's our review of Anatomy of a Fall.
We are less than 5 weeks away from the biggest and most prestigious award ceremony in the film industry. The ceremony that showcases the best films the year has to offer, awarding those at the height of their craft, honoring the best in acting, writing, directing, and every aspect of filmmaking. Oh, who am I kidding? The Oscars haven't done that in years, but they still claim to. And as such, we'll still review nominees to lend our opinions on whether they truly are the best. This week, we tackle Best Picture nominee Anatomy of a Fall, a French-made film from Best Director nominee Justine Triet, who committed the sin of being a nominated female director not named Greta Gerwig. Starring Sandra Hüller as Sandra Voiter, Anatomy of a Fall follows Sandra, who must prove herself innocent as she's implicated in the death of her husband, who was found dead outside of their home, apparently having fallen from the attic window. Having premiered at Cannes last year, where it won the Palme d'Or, the film became one of France's most critically acclaimed films of the year, gaining notice and traction worldwide. A procedural drama that features your standard investigation and trial, showcasing aspects of the French justice system, while being praised for highlighting ideas of perception of truth based on evidence without context versus reality. Despite these glowing appraisals, however, or maybe because of them, I personally finished the film feeling quite underwhelmed. Hüller and much of the main cast give solid performances. Milo Michel-de-Graner, who plays Sandra's blinded son Daniel, stands out as an impressive child actor capable of displaying a range of convincing emotion, and Antoine Reinhardt as the prosecutor too, I felt stood out as a perfect antagonist, highlighting not a corrupt or evil man, but a man convinced he knows the truth whether the evidence is circumstantial or not. Dialogue is well written too, though the story itself is long-winded and a bit dull. From a technical aspect, Anatomy of a Fall is well made, better than your typical television procedural like Law & Order, yet somehow less compelling and entertaining. Yes, despite its Palme d'Or and multiple Oscar nominations, I fail to see what set Anatomy of a Fall apart from any other procedural, let alone the biggest films of the year. While praised as an analysis of truth in the justice system, I never felt the movie followed through on this theme, more so than any other procedural. Trials by their very nature are hearings to sift out the truth from lies, and no justice system is perfect. But outside of Sandra's insistence that the evidence doesn't display reality, very little else in the movie plays out in a way that makes me question the truth. Instead, the film feels like any other standard procedural, where a character must defend themselves against a false accusation. Again, by such a plot's very nature, some aspects of the truth plays into the theme. But Anatomy of a Fall, despite its name, doesn't really get into dissecting and examining the ideals of truth. Ultimately, I found Anatomy of a Fall a well-made film that is another Oscar nominee that not only doesn't cover new ground, but doesn't do anything truly unique. Add in some of the duller moments in the movie's 2.5-hour runtime, and Anatomy of a Fall is okay for a single watch. I give Anatomy of a Fall 2.5 out of 4 stars.
Well, 2.5 out of 4 stars isn't
It's not
terrible.
bad. I mean, when you're talking about Best Picture nominee, you tend to think of those at least 3 or more. But
Right. I mean, you're definitely gonna want to be
Not
in
these
that camp.
days.
yeah, and it's fun because I mean, it's not a bad made film. In fact, I mean, honestly, I like it more than some of the others that were nominated. Especially Maestro. I gave it a higher score than Maestro. It
was better than Maestro.
It was one of those things where, and which again was also a well-made film. I just didn't like how they presented the subject matter.
Yeah, the content was bad.
For this, I just felt, like I said in the review, like definitely better made than like Law and Order. I'm not trying to knock it like that, but like I'll just use any type of procedural. When I saw it, I was like, it's a well-made procedural. And I do understand, like, the acting is great. I do think the people, like, she deserves her nom.
The writing is fantastic.
The kid, I think, should have gotten a supporting actor nom more than some of the others. But it's just one of those things where no matter how well it made it was a little too long-winded. It lost my interest in some parts. And I just kind of, it's one that I'm like, it's well made, but it's not one that I think stands the test of time in a way that I'm going to revisit it the way I want to revisit past Oscar winners.
Yeah, I mean, I ended up falling into the same category. I think when I initially finished the film, I was thinking 3 out of 4 because it is. I don't have any real complaints with the movie, other than maybe that their nitpicks with it being a tad drawn out. I think it is a little bit long-winded. Its conclusion is not bad. I don't think they leave you with maybe this ambiguous, oh, you can piece together the puzzle yourself and it could or could not be that outcome.
Right.
Yeah.
I think they're pretty clear cut in my mind as to what the end is.
Well, according to all the critics, you're wrong.
Well, and the critics, I think, are obviously, I think they're wrong.
They have important themes about truth in this movie.
Well, but that's the thing. Like, there was nothing... Like you said, yes, maybe better scripted or better written than a procedural drama, and definitely not the melodrama you get with most like NYPD Blue or Blue Bloods or Law and Order. I mean, but the thing is you still have sophisticated stories wrapped up in emotional ties with people that you may if you watch a drama like that, you get connected with. And in this, I just felt like there was nothing in this movie that stood out to me that told a story in such a way I'd never seen before, or that was so riveting that I was going to have to immediately tell someone, you've got to check this out. I told you all during the review, I liken it to the movie, a way better representation of this kind of drama was the movie Doubt. That was based on a play back in the day, but it came out as a movie with Philip Seymour Hoffman, Amy Adams, Meryl Streep, and then it was a breakout role, and her breakout role for Viola Davis. And in fact, I think
fantastic movie. I love that.
Oh,
movie.
it's absolutely phenomenal. And to me, there was more care and consideration done with not only the topic of choice, but really making you feel uneasy with not knowing and versus knowing. The real
like,
what's at stake.
What was the truth?
Right.
And that's something that critics are praising this movie for. Of what you only get, evidence out of context, so they have to build the truth out of this, and that evidence doesn't always showcase what the actual truth is. And I was like, if that's part of this movie's theme, I don't feel like it covers that any more than any other film about a trial where they have to showcase the evidence and piece out the truth. It's like that's just a trial in its very nature. And if you want to emphasize those themes of a trial, I don't think the movie really emphasized those themes in that way. And I also while I thought her acting was phenomenal, I didn't find her character very likable, which helped them. Like, that made the movie drag for me, because I was just like, I didn't hate her, but I also didn't like.
You were
I
just
wasn't
kind of apathetic.
Yeah, I wasn't rooting for her, and I was just like, well, whether she did or didn't do it, I don't really care.
True.
So I think
true.
I think they tried to make her intentionally a little bit unlikable so that you could see her doing something like that. But I agree with Brandon. I don't think they showed enough of her character to make you, to really push you over the edge and think that she could. I kept thinking somehow or another it's going to come back to the kid's a psychopath.
Same.
And he did something, especially after the dog.
That's what I thought
that's
too.
when I thought, I was like, oh, this kid's crazy.
Well, and I don't know if that was just the I'll be honest, it wasn't the poor translation, but what I was watching, the translation lagged a little. So he's sitting there and he's crying and bawling, and as he's explaining, I kept having to start and pause it so the translation would catch up with the scene. And there were times as he was describing it, I'm sitting here and I'm like, is he breaking down because he feels bad that this happened and he didn't mean to, it was an accident?
Yeah.
Or is he breaking down because he's like, he was piecing together something and he knows that his mom did do it? I was trying to gauge what the conversation was, what he was telling, and it wasn't until they get to the court appearance of the boy and he finally comes clean and talks about it. And even that, I felt like, it just seemed a little bit contrived. And I know this is where maybe some of the critics will glom on and say, no, that's the brilliance of it, where I disagree. And I think to tack on as big a detail of what kind of pushes you over the edge and realizing, I don't want to spoil it as to whether or not she's innocent or guilty.
Yeah.
But they push a piece of evidence to the very end to showcase that definitive fact.
Yeah.
From the boy's perspective. And my first thought is, okay, we already know the boy has lost a parent, and we know that the boy may cling to his mother just because, one, it's his only parent left, or two, because he does feel like she was justified. Like, there were just so many conflicts of interest in terms of this boy choosing to be the mouthpiece, and where I think they could have went riveting with it, they went the other direction, and it ends up being so convoluted to a degree that I'm like, this is kind of shaky, and I don't know if this was just thrown in there to tie it up real quick, or if this is just to give you some kind of feeling of peace that, this is really what happened. This was the outcome, and thankfully she's
It's another moment like I said with Argylle, where they thought they were being more clever than they really were. Now, not as poorly as Argylle. It definitely is much better and more clever than that, but it's just one of those things where it's like, it's well written, but one of those things like you said that I'm just like, this just kind of feels like, well, we need to wrap this up somehow, so let's do it this way.
They keep throwing these, like, I'm sorry about my voice, but it's like they make you think, okay, well, she's innocent, then this piece of evidence comes out and it's pretty damning, and then it's like, well, no, there's an explanation for that. Then another piece of evidence comes out and it's damning, and then it's, I felt like if you're going to if you want to be brilliant with this thing, give us a big chunk of evidence at the beginning and spend the rest of the movie trying to refute that evidence, not giving these little, it's like
little nuggets.
Yeah,
throughout.
it's like you would have discovered almost all of this in the beginning of your investigation.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why would this stuff come out days later or a week or so later in the investigation? And it was convenient, like you said. His testimony, the child's testimony, was very convenient at the end when it needed to be.
Right.
But then there's other pieces of evidence like recordings and therapists' opinion and all these different things that it's like, oh wow, that's conveniently placed right in the middle of the movie to keep you wondering.
To
keep you on the edge of your seat.
And that's where I felt like it, and I saw like a lot of different, when I was editing the reviews, obviously the footage is from the trailers, and there were a lot of one-line, headliners from movie review outlets like Hollywood Reporter and Variety, and they were all just talking about how suspenseful this movie was, and it keeps you on the edge of your seat of what really happened. And I'm like, I never really felt that kind of tension. It was a dramatic movie that, like, really the trailer, after watching it, after having seen the movie, I'm kind of glad I saw the movie first, because it would have been even more of a letdown. Yeah. Because it makes it seem, not that it's not riveting, there are certain parts that are. I was actually more focused on the little details about their relationship. And I was a little bit more invested in, like, when they show the scene where they're having the fight, and, that I thought that was great.
Oh, yeah.
And the way it escalated from very kind of general little, pokes and prods and jabs from a husband to a wife and vice versa. I'm like, okay, that's how an argument would start. And then it just builds and builds and builds. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, okay, so now we're seeing there is a lot more tension here than just little ribbing back and forth or discomfort and, being disgruntled. And that I was more invested in that, and you only really see it in chunks, but like they're spread so far throughout. I mean, it's 2.5 hours long.
Yeah.
It did not need to be 2.5 hours long. And I just felt by the end of it, I'm just like, I didn't have any feeling of it. So it was like after a day of mulling over, I'm like, I knocked it down from 3 to 2.5. Yeah. It's not a bad movie.
No.
It's how, let me put it this way, going into it, it was the same way I went into Banshees of Inisherin last year. But to me, Banshees, when I walked away from that last year, I was like, this is a far better, phenomenal film that would have completely went under the radar, and I would have completely missed had it not been nominated.
Yeah.
This one, I was hoping for that and got the opposite. I was like, okay. You can pass on it if you want.
It happens.
It's not really, you're not missing anything.
So it does deserve some of the noms it has received. I'm not sure about Best Picture, but then again,
just not a huge standout.
Yeah.
Nothing so far that I think of the pack that we've seen that has really just said, oh, that's got to be it.
Yeah. Oh, no, yeah. I don't see this getting
Not even the big ones like Barbie and Oppenheimer. No. No, they don't deserve it, but they'll probably get.
Oh, yeah.
They may get it. But anyways, all right. I think we're ready to move on to our headlines.
Yeah.
Let's roll that open.
Yeah.
Let's get into it. Thank you.
There it is.
Sean, sticking with us, man. He's struggling over there. He's got the cough.
It's fine.
Keith had it
got the crud.
back in December.
He's got the crud.
Got the crud. All right, let's talk about a little bit of the headline.
What? Which one?
Our
Which one you want?
main headline for this evening.
We got multiples.
This one's actually it's our big headline, what we titled the show tonight. But it's not. It's more of a tease, I guess, because we don't know what's to come.
Well,
that is more Hollywood strikes incoming. What?
Yeah.
Could they be happening soon?
Well, I think IATSE is just strike hungry now. They're just like, let's get everyone we represent needs to go on strike.
They're just jealous because they had one of their deals went through without any kind of, trouble. What was it? Not last year. Actually, I think it was early in the year. Because I forget when they had like a they were one of the first big major deals that went through either last year or the year before. And everything was kosher, and they were like, well, maybe this, because everybody was like, oh, if IATSE strikes, we're in big trouble, because then we lose all of our workers, and since COVID, and we're trying to get everything back up and running with the theaters, and then we had, everything went smooth. Then you had last year the WGA and the SAG-AFTRA. Well, now IATSE is coming back up for some negotiations with the Producers Guild. Not Producers Guild. It's the American Motion Picture Producers something.
The
AMPF.
Alliance of Motion
AMPA.
Picture.
That's it.
Alliance of Motion
That's it.
Picture and Television Producers.
But they actually have something that is coming up here in March. Comes out. They're going to be sitting down at the table. And the thing
Preemptively,
is,
because their contracts expire in July. So
Right.
they're trying. Obviously, they want to.
but
bang one out before
negotiations
then, yeah.
start in March.
So they don't have to strike in July. They don't have to.
They don't have to, but they're
they
doing
will.
something else.
That's a threat. That's what it is.
That's what they're doing. They're
We don't
bringing.
have to strike.
They are bringing other unions to the table. Specifically, I got to pull them up here. I don't have them.
I know Teamsters is a big
Teamster. It's the local 399.
Yeah, I have
Local
that.
99.
The Electrical Workers, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Laborers International Union of North America. What was that?
That was
Siri.
Oh.
She heard somebody, I guess.
United Association Plumbers.
Yeah, they have. It's all
They
right
have
here.
the plumbers.
The
There it
they
is.
have the plasterers
Yeah.
and cement masons
There we
international.
are.
International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. They said, yeah.
Gosh.
Laborers International Union, Plumbers Union, yeah, Plasters. Yeah, that's all of them right there. Sean named them all.
But overall,
All of them.
altogether, IATSE itself makes up about 170,000 workers, and that's considered what they say technicians, artisans, and craftspeople. Basically, all the below the line peeps on a movie set, or it could be in any production. TV could be on Broadway. They're all part of IATSE, or IATSE represents them. And then you have about with the Teamsters and other Hollywood basic crafts, all of them combined, it's about 178,000 union members sitting at the table trying to negotiate with AMPTP.
And these are all, I mean,
producers.
People talk about, like writers, directors, actors. People think, oh, you can't make a movie without a star to star in it or director directed. But these are the people, the real people. Like, you can't make a movie if you don't have a set to film the movie
That's
on.
right.
So
Plasterers, plumbers, electricians.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
They build the movie.
like literally,
Yeah.
everything it takes to be able to even start filming. Like, you can't even do pre-production without them.
And the other thing, too, to mention about this is specifically that this has to do with a very specific thing they're negotiating, and that is healthcare benefits and their pension. So there's other negotiations that are going on and I think that's actually what I was alluding to with the deal that they made before. It didn't have to do with the pensions or the healthcare. That's what's on the table for this particular round. As far as everything else, I think other deals that they've made in the past, I'm pretty sure, I guess the union is happy with the member. The members don't have anything that they're specifically arguing for that they don't have the right to right now. I think ultimately what you're really seeing, though, is that, look, this is what happens when, I think in some sense, when you have some kind of workers' representation, if you are part of a group that is kind of constantly overlooked, or like you all were even drawn attention to just now, a group of people that clearly, if we didn't have, these productions would not be making it to the big screen or to the stage, or even to your TV sets. However, there does come a time, when you are magnifying a problem, when you see something like the WGA or the SAG-AFTRA strike, you're seeing all of these unions being representative of the people that are in those guilds. Mm-hmm. However, because all of them are drawing points of contention with the industry that they're a part of, it slowly becomes a black eye on the industry itself. And now, look, we'll get on here and rant and rave all the time about Hollywood eating its own, and especially when it comes to woke content that they just can't get enough of, and they continue to try to shove down our throat. Regardless of that, from a social standpoint, when it comes to even the working standpoint of just the operation of pushing out content, this is what you're up against. This is the balloon that is becoming the Hollywood bubble. You can sit here and talk about representation all day, and you can talk about how it matters and you need to be represented. But when you have these union groups coming together in this kind of, like you said, yeah, they're coming to the table to negotiate March 7th, but the fact that out of the gate, they're like, we're not messing around. we know we can strike.
Yeah, we'll strike next.
And that that means that everything's on the table. You're already coming at it from a perspective of we've got a bone to pick with you, and if you don't, this is the nuclear option. We're going to push the button.
It's not good faith negotiation. You're automatically going in, like you said, with the nuclear option, saying, "Well, you give us what we want, or we're gonna cripple your industry again."
And that's what I find is kind of laughable, is because, without going into it, because it doesn't really deal with the movie industry, but we know personally people who were dealing with the whole the auto worker strike, and the fact that there were people who they have to, because they're in the union, you have to go on strike when they tell you to. You have to go and picket for a certain amount of time because that you're part of the union.
You don't have a choice, or you don't get paid.
You don't get strike pay.
And a lot of the people that were having to do that were specifically saying, "I'd rather be working. I don't want to be doing this. I don't even care. I'm paid handsomely. I'm okay."
It's like, I'm not gonna get into details, but the strike pay was a pittance. So it's like,
yes,
you get paid, but it's not enough to live off.
It's not even half, right?
Yeah,
it's less than half of what they
it's just
normally
make. It's one of those things where you're in a situation where, yes, people say, well, you're fighting for something greater, so you just have to make that sacrifice until you win out. It's like, but some people can't. They can't sacrifice that much for that long
with children and. Yeah,
there's
paycheck to paycheck.
It's like there's people that you can't,
especially
without
in this
that paycheck,
economy,
you have to pay your bills, you have to buy groceries, you have to it's hard. And
and a lot of times you're hearing the mouthpiece of these union labor top dogs, and I'm sitting here thinking, you don't represent anybody but yourself.
They're still getting paid.
Well, because they come in and do their job, but also they know that their pocketbook is fattened by the people that they have to pay into their coffers, i.e. the workers that are paying them. And again, this always has begged the question, since it's not like unions existed to just come in, clean up what was bad and how they were being, how they were taking advantage of people, and then they subsided and went away. No, it was like anything that becomes kind of like a scheme. It's, we're going to be in, get while the getting's good, and this is actually very lucrative.
Yeah,
let's keep it going.
Well, again,
and so a lot of times I have a feeling that they're not representative of most of their worker force, and even when you're pretty much strapped to, or you have a gun pointed at your head, when you do have to go along, you better not go against the union because you'll be ousted immediately, and then see if you can get any kind of work whatsoever when it comes to the Hollywood industry. Yeah. If you're locked into the guild, you got to vote with them hook, line, and sinker. Yeah. And you see them touting it every time they throw around the number of, we got 98% support. And I'm like, well, yeah, it's like freaking Soviet Cuba. I'm like, of course you do. Nobody's going to vote against Fidel.
Yeah.
Like, they're, of course, going to vote for that.
And it does go back to like that good faith negotiation, because there's times when, like you said, you're not representing all of your actual union, because, maybe most of the people are fine with, a 10% raise, but because you're thinking, I can push for more, I can get us a 20, 30, 40% raise. And it's like, okay, well, we've been off work long enough, we're happy with this raise, let's just accept that. No, we have to really stick it to them. And it's like, what's more important here? Like, actually representing the people that you're supposed to be representing?
And I think that's wherein lies the biggest issue, and the problem is that a lot of times when these unions do get so big and they are representing so many people, the voices aren't really heard. The union just knows that if they come out with their fancy speech, or they drum up some bullet points that gets enough people to be like, yeah, that sounds nice, that's what I want, and they just need to do enough to, one, so they can keep their chair seat in the union, but also so that they, every once in a while, can pull these little negotiations and initiatives, and then regardless of how much it may hurt the individual worker day to day, they get to come out on top saying, look at what we negotiated. This is fair. We pulled together for the worker and we won out. It always seems to be this win-win scenario. But when it comes to Hollywood, it falls in line of the same thing. It's like, no, what's really happening is the worker force, especially in a group like IATSE, your day-to-day workers, they really are out of the job when they can't go and work on a film set if you strike, and they're not getting their bread and butter. But also, it really hurts the consumer who doesn't have any films to watch, which hurts the industry as a whole. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, what did you come into this industry to do? And what are you here for? And if they've lost sight of that, which most of Hollywood has, why do you think we're in the kind of repeat, remake, franchise hell that we are? And there is no originality. And I think it's because you do have a lot of this. I mean, it is a lot of suits mixed with Hollywood personalities they don't have any inkling of actually portraying real art anymore.
No.
But it's just having some kind of social cause attached to it so that they can get out there and browbeat you from their bully pulpit and they can feel good about themselves.
Yeah, and they're allowed to say whatever they want and browbeat you with their view, but if you tweet out your view, you get fired for
You're
it.
ostracized.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
like kind of like our next headline.
That's right. I think we can move into it. I like that segue. You want to bring it up?
Gina? No, we were
Gina.
we were joking about Gina Carano. Yes, suing Disney, and I've seen some, the people on the opposite side of the aisle like, oh, she waited 3 years to do it. What's up with that? It's like, well, there is a reason for that, and we're going to get into it. But she is suing Disney for wrongful termination off The Mandalorian. I had actually forgotten about it, and I'm happy to see Elon Musk is putting his money where his mouth is.
Yep.
Because he had made a post on X a few months back.
It was actually a few months after he bought the company.
Right after he bought, stating, if you had ever been terminated for something, like for basically the whole freedom of speech idea, if you've posted something on social media that got you in trouble or termination wrongfully because you should have freedom of speech, he said he would cover your bill,
legal expenses
for legal expenses for a lawsuit. And Gina Carano was one of the first people to respond to that, saying, I think I qualify, and then nothing was ever heard of it until now, where we've now found out Elon Musk is paying legal bills for her to sue Disney for wrongful termination.
I was gonna say I'd love to pull up. I mean, it's a long tweet based on what tweets are.
I have it
But-
right
Yeah, we
here.
got it
Yeah, go
pulled
ahead.
up.
We
I'm
can
not going
read
to try
it.
to read it.
I can read
Go
it.
ahead.
Do you want me to read it?
I may
Okay.
have Sean do the email tonight.
Yeah.
You got that sultry voice.
So,
Sounds good.
Gina Carano, today is an important day for me. I am filing a lawsuit against Lucas at Lucasfilm and at Disney, because it's on X, after my 20 years of building a career from scratch, and during the regime of former Disney CEO Bob Chapek, Lucasfilm made this statement on Twitter terminating me from The Mandalorian. Gina Carano is not currently employed by Lucasfilm, and there are no plans for her to be in the future. Nevertheless, her social media posts denigrating people based on their cultural and religious identities are abhorrent and unacceptable. Nothing, this is her speaking again, nothing could be further from the truth. The truth is, I was being hunted down from everything I posted to every post I liked because I was not in line with the acceptable narrative of the time. My words were consistently twisted to demonize and dehumanize me as an alt-right wing extremist. It was a bullying smear campaign aimed at silencing, destroying, and making an example out of me. The thing is, I never even used aggressive language. I shared thought-provoking quotes, pictures, memes, and occasionally I used my own words, not with aggression, but with respect and the occasional comedy to keep the mood light in dark times. Look with your own eyes at what I posted and ask yourself, for example, where did I compare Republicans to the Jewish people in the Holocaust? I didn't. Ask yourself why they were calling me a racist. Was there any merit behind that or history of it whatsoever? No. Look at what I was called, a transphobe, for making droid noises from Star Wars. Beep Bop Boop was obviously directed to the online bullies.
Great meme, by the way.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Great troll.
And did not in any way denigrate transgender people. Were my questions about mask, lockdowns, and forced vaccines okay to ask and push the subject into the light? Should we have been allowed to publicly discuss those topics at the time without being harassed or censored? Absolutely. Hollywood says they support female representation and equal rights. I actually really like this point. Why then were my male co-stars permitted to speak without harassment and re-education courses or termination, but I was not afforded the same right to exercise my freedom of speech? Artists do not sign away our rights as American citizens when we enter into employment. I have spoken to all my co-stars since I was fired, and there is nothing but care and kind words between us. I respect their right to free speech and do not have to think the same on every issue to be their friends and work with them, and I know they feel the same towards me. A couple months ago, Elon Musk tweeted that if you had been fired from using the platform X for exercising your right to free speech, he would like to offer those people legal representation. Quite the noble offer, but never in my wildest dreams would I have thought anyone would take on my case against Lucasfilm/Disney. Still, I did respond back, I think I qualify, and thousands of people agreed, but I did not expect anything. To my surprise, a few months ago, I received an email from a lawyer who had been hired by X to look into my story and many others. Turns out, after sending them as much information as I could gather, these past few months, my now lawyers and X believe wholeheartedly in my case and are moving forward. I would like to express my deepest gratitude and thank you to Elon Musk and X for giving me an opportunity to bring my case to light. As for me, I would love to pick up where I left off and continue my journey of creating and participating in storytelling, which is my utmost passion and everything I worked so hard for. It has been difficult to move forward with the lies and labels stuck on me, backed and encouraged by the most powerful entertainment company in the world. I am grateful someone has come to my defense in such a powerful way and look forward to clearing my name. Thank you to all the people who have supported me and made your voices heard. I pray God blesses each and every one of you. With love, Gina Carano.
Fantastic.
So yeah,
I'm glad she thoroughly explained it, and props to Elon for following through on his word.
Yeah,
and for it's funny because I actually saw a tweet, a post on X a little bit earlier today after she posted this, and it was Roseanne saying, "Hey." Over here, I was like, she's like, well.
So you're jumping on the bandwagon a little late, Roseanne, but hey.
But no. I think
it's just fair.
I think it's fair, yeah, because it's like, I think in the same vein, she's also, again, we saw through the Twitter files, which were released after Elon took over, that there was coercion.
There was targeting.
From the government, from federal agents, directly to Twitter, that they were wanting to dampen down on the reach of certain posts and certain figures, specific people, that this was a targeted campaign towards specific actors. And these are U.S. citizens. I mean, of all the people that you would think would go to bat for you and your rights, it would be the federal government. No, quite the opposite.
You would hope.
You would hope.
Yeah.
But no, it turns out that exactly the opposite. And so, great on Elon for following through, helping her with these legal expenses. It seems I thought it was very well done, not only what she said, but it made it seem as if there was a lot of legalese speaking there.
Yeah.
I think that was orchestrated real well.
Yes.
In terms of, I'm sure that her lawyer helped her write up that statement to post.
Yeah.
Because she nails all the points that they're going to go through, basically to be like, hey, Disney, we're coming for you. Yeah. You better lawyer up.
That was actually one thing I thought about, because someone had even said about, as far as contracts go, a lot of places have, like, if anything reflects poorly on the company or you say something outside, blah, 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 things you do outside of your job.
It matters.
Can impact your job. So people are like, well, she signed the contract, so she has no case. It's like, but she kind of does if she can prove that they didn't hold the other stars, because she very much mentions that, to the same standards.
That's right.
It's like you can prove it's like, okay, they didn't hold that contract to these standards on these stars, but to her they did.
Yeah. Exactly.
Because Pedro Pascal... Is that what you were getting ready to say?
No, go ahead.
I say Pedro Pascal has never really came under fire for the tweets and things that he has posted that were, I quote, Disney denigrating to other people.
Yeah.
And so I'm assuming she's referring to not only that male cast member, but others that were not held to the same standard that she's being held to.
Exactly. And you can clearly see why Disney didn't. It's like, side character, main character.
Star, yeah.
Main character of your major hit show right now. We're not going to go that route.
But also what he said aligns with, the values they support, whereas what she said doesn't.
Exactly.
So there's a complete double standard.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the biggest issue that I think she has the best legal precedent on. Again, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know. Yeah. But I would hope that if
it's not like she shot and killed somebody.
That's right. But no, I do think it's interesting because at least Elon is putting his money where his mouth is. But I also think that's the best, I think, weight behind her right now.
Yeah.
Is all you need to know is that you have the resources of someone like an Elon Musk, a powerhouse like that.
Yeah.
Well, if you're going up
He
against
can
Disney,
afford to go against
Yes.
Disney.
Right,
Yeah.
and that's why it'll make Disney not only cower, but more likely to settle. Whereas they would never admit any wrong. They wouldn't. Obviously, they don't want to take anything like this.
If
to
she
trial.
hired her own lawyer, this would be swept under the
Oh,
rug.
yeah.
Disney would it'd be
Yeah.
done. Yeah.
Excuse me. I think another thing in just to say good on Elon with is I was just looking up the timeline of these events. She was fired in 2021. Elon didn't buy Twitter until April of 22.
Yeah.
So the issues with free speech didn't even happen under his company name or under his watch. And yet he's still going back and saying he could have very easily said, moving forward, if you're persecuted on my platform, I'll handle your legal expenses and we'll go get them. But instead, he's going back a full year and saying if it happened even a year before I took over this company, you were wronged and I'm going to help you.
Yeah.
That's, to me, makes what he's doing even bigger.
Well, it shows character. I mean,
Absolutely. Yeah.
People can bash Elon all they want, but I mean, he's a man that has principles and he stands by
And
them.
look, and I'm not going to be. I'll be a little cynical here and play devil's advocate a bit. I mean, come on, it's a good PR stunt.
Oh, it is.
It's a good PR stunt for Elon to get out there and say, not only am I standing firm on this stance, but there's a reason why he's not going after every Tom, Dick, and Harry that are on the platform saying, well, my work got mad at me for such a... For one, this is a very notable case, a notable instance of someone who was popular, who was, I'll argue, gaining popularity. I don't even think Gina Carano would argue this against this. She got her claim to fame not from her UFC career or not from even being in that kind of realm, or she was getting her start. Her first major role was The Mandalorian. She was a fan favorite, and she started to become a bigger star because of that show. And yet they ripped the rug out from under her just because she spoke her mind and she didn't necessarily go along with the narrative they wanted to push. And so absolutely it's Elon going, he's being strategic about it. He's in a way, you could say it's all, it's his ego trip, or it's him just trying to push his weight around and show how powerful he is, or, it's good PR stunt for... No, what it also is it justifies the fact that he's saying, we're going to pick these bigger cases that most people are aware of the person involved, because now that fortifies what I mean when I say X is a free speech platform. Well, because if you get a few victories in that line, like a Gina Carano, like a Roseanne Barr, maybe even something along the lines of other people. I mean, Daily Wire, I forget, they have a lawsuit in the works as far as going after the federal government because of suppression they had on, I think, Facebook. Yeah. And it was backed by like Facebook messages that came out that they saw federal agents reaching out to social media platforms to suppress free speech. So when you have these bigger names become victorious, it immediately is going to cause the pressure and the boiling point of, okay, we got to back off this. Like, they're coming for our heads. They're not lightening up. And this is exactly what needs to happen.
Yeah.
This needs to take
Well, it's how
precedent.
you effectively fight back. Because one, like you said, because it is so open, like they are big cases, you have the whole public see it. It's not something that can just be easily swept under the rug because they are in the public eye that people can see, so many people don't even know that there's been documents released showing where federal governments were suppressing speech on Facebook and Twitter. But when you bring these huge cases with movie stars, television stars, whoever out, and people follow them and see, they're like, oh, I didn't know about that. And then they go and look it up. That's how they discover that this has been going on. And that is how you fight back, because you have to bring awareness to it in that way.
Yeah, the release of the Twitter files and all of that on his part was also... not just because a lot of people, especially on one side of the aisle, said that that's another publicity stunt. But at the same time, that's him showing that his platform is a platform of free speech the way Twitter was supposed to be. And maybe even it was in its infancy. But now that he's got the reins, he is making it just that. If he's not afraid to oust the things that, happened in his own company, then I just think that proves to be, I think a lot of people were kind of like, Elon's taking over Twitter. It's going to the wayside. We're going to jump ship and go to another platform. And he's saying, no, this is where you want to be, because now it's going to be what it was supposed to be.
Right. And I mean, again, it shows open and transparency.
Yes.
Being open and transparent. And it's like, for me, it was after he bought it that I was already starting to get on there a little bit more. before, but right after it was told that he was going to buy it, I definitely was getting on there a lot more because it is the place you go for breaking news. I mean, it's instant. I mean, it's always the first place I'm seeing something pop up, and of course you have to filter through the junk because everybody wants to label everything as breaking, and it's like I don't care. But I mean, ultimately, yes, he's trying to build the social town square that is going to have your crazy nuts in it.
Yeah.
But you can go in and you can filter. You can pick and choose who you want to block, who you want to follow, who you want to mute. I mean, that was always kind of the initial, that was supposed to be the idea. It's the same thing as Facebook. I mean, Facebook is supposed to be a place where you can go and monitor and filter through these things that you find, offensive or that you don't want to interact with. The problem is Mark Zuckerberg has kind of put, it's been no secret that Zuckerberg has put, profitability in terms of selling data, user data, at the forefront of what his platform is and represents. And it's like that clearly has come. That used to be, it was like, hey, we're going to do as much of this as we can while we're, kind of nobody's focusing on us. And at the moment, it's like you got caught with your hand in the cookie jar. Now everybody's gunning for you. All of a sudden now, Mark Zuckerberg's playing defense, and no, we've got all of these. All of these checks and balances in place to keep people from thinking that, we're just doing this maliciously or that we're, they're just a number on a spreadsheet in a database somewhere. But it's like little too late. Yeah. I mean, Elon coming in and kind of reviving X to the point of, Twitter, then changing it to X is his way of saying, look, it's kind of the same argument that people say with Trump being in the race. They're like, this is a billionaire. This guy doesn't have to do this. I mean, clearly Elon Musk, took a loss in buying the platform. Yeah. It's not been lucrative. Of course, I know he wants to turn it to being lucrative. Yeah. But he knows too, I think, longevity, that you don't just go along with what is popular here and now. You stick with virtues that are timeless, that are intrinsic to what human nature expects. And as long as you stick with that creed, I think you can go into the future and expect robust growth and, people to stick with you.
Yeah. And, it's about business is supposed to be amoral. You're not supposed to pick one side or the other. It should be a free speech platform. And that is how you continue to get the most users, because then everybody feels welcome using it. There's times where people have petitioned him to cancel or delete account, ban accounts of other people on the opposite side of the aisle, and he's come out and said, no, I'm not going to do that because it's free speech for everybody, not just one side or the other. Yeah, and that is, again, like you said, that makes a long-standing platform that maybe one day is more lucrative. But you have to start by making something that, again, is timeless, that everybody can use, that's not alienating one group or another.
And I do think it's funny because as quickly as talking about Threads came, it has also went. So, I mean, just kind of like you'll always see the news that's omitted is probably the ones you should keep your attention on. And it's funny how the news, just when Threads launched from Facebook, it was like hammering every day of the week leading up to the launch of, this is the X killer. That's what Facebook says. Yeah. They always frame it in a way that they're not showing their bias, but they're just saying, this is what we've heard, and this is the Twitter killer. That's what they say. And they'll build up the story. Of course, it launches, and they talk about its fast-paced growth. And now all of a sudden, look at it, we're, I think, close to a year of it being out, or maybe 6-7 months, and it's like, no. Yeah. It's nobody's talking about it.
I don't get
so it quietly fades into the background.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I don't get any notifications on Facebook, but I do on Instagram, which they're both owned by Meta. Constantly I'll get Instagram notifications that says, these people really want you on Threads. And I'm like, no, they don't. You're just trying to get me to make an account, because it'll give me friends list. People I haven't talked to in years. It's like, this person really wants to see what you have to say on Threads. You should make an account. It's like, I haven't talked to that person in 5 years. They don't care. It's like they are desperate for people for users.
Yeah. And look, I mean, it's just interesting because again, like this Gina Carano thing, even if it does gain traction and it actually does go to the courts or they end up settling, you'll see it as like a footnote in a lot of these major news publications. Because again, when it destroys their narrative and what they're trying to perpetrate, they don't have a leg to stand on, so they can't put it as the main headline. They can't say that this is an actual win for free speech and normal people, everyday people, to be able to speak their mind. They have to bury it on page 6 so that you either have to dig for it or they can just say, oh, yeah, see, we did cover it. We talked about it. So we'll be on the lookout for the details coming in this. I'm sure it's going to be long and drawn out, and it's going to take some time, but I'm interested. With Elon's weight behind Gina Carano, I really do think that this lawsuit could hopefully end up going somewhere that's a positive direction for the country.
It sets a precedent.
Agreed. A little premature there.
That's okay.
No, that I was trying to. Yeah, I didn't mean to cut Sean off. I was just excited about the lawsuit. It's
working. It's working.
maybe.
think
There's not even been a trial yet.
Yeah, exactly. We don't know.
Yeah.
The lawsuit's been brought. Who knows what's going to happen? All right, let's go into our Vices segment.
Vice.
You know what we're talking about this week?
What are we talking about?
I just read it.
Talking about wrestling and sports entertainment. That's right, Raw! Monday Night Raw! We want Cody! We want Cody! We want
I
Cody!
just want to say.
Uh-oh. Is Keith going to join me?
Where's it at?
Where's it at? He's got it.
I got both shirts.
He should have prepared this. There it is.
Oh, wow.
The American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes.
Cody Rhodes.
Come on, say it with me, Keith. Let's start the check.
I don't
We
even-
want Cody. We want Cody.
So
We want Cody.
there's been a big upset because Rocky hashtag Rocky
Hold
sucks.
on. We got.
I don't even know what
explain
you're
it.
talking about.
I was gonna say.
That's what I was getting into. Is
No,
what
no,
happened.
no. I was gonna say, but to start out the segment, the
Yeah.
reason this came about was because we've hinted at it before on the show.
Yeah.
That wrestling is this kind of guilty pleasure where I dip in and out of it. And I
Yeah.
I used to be a hardcore fan when I was little.
Yeah.
But since I've become an adult, and of course I gravitated away from it, I'll buy the game occasionally here and there. But I'll just dip into it and I just have these kicks where I'm like, I want to get my wrestling fix in. So this became a Vices topic. Keith had actually mentioned it a couple weeks ago, and he was like, next time we have Vices, we should probably talk about wrestling, because it's like every once in a while we get our fix.
Well, I've been following it weekly since the beginning, like since their first Raw of the year. But it's funny because it was mainly the Iron Claw that I think threw both of us back into it, and I started getting back into it before you, but then I wouldn't shut up about it every time I come over to do a review. So then he started watching it, and we would text each other during Raw. And on the last SmackDown,
well, and there's no secret that at the beginning of the year, I mean, WrestleMania is the big event for wrestling.
Yeah.
And the start of the year starts the road to WrestleMania, pretty much.
Okay.
So you have like two major events leading up to WrestleMania. And I was just like, I knew I was going to get back into it because I always do around this time of the year. And I always do watch WrestleMania just because it's fun, just to enjoy.
Yeah.
And ever since COVID, they've made it 2 nights now.
Yeah.
It's now 2 nights it's on a Saturday and a Sunday, which is just insane.
the stage of the Immortals.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right.
But yeah,
And so,
'cause
yeah,
I followed up.
continue now.
I followed up in December, like with what's been really going. I watched the last 2 WrestleManias, but that was it. And then in December, I got into like what's been going on as far as the storyline over the last 2 years. And really, I just want to emphasize that like this has been like WWE's kind of big comeback the last couple years. 2019 or 2020 being a huge low point with COVID. They were doing shows with empty arenas, empty.
They had those weird
stadiums.
monitor.
It
was weird.
They literally the empty stadiums where the wrestlers came out in front of nobody and performed, and then they still weren't getting like people really watching at home either. So ratings are down. It's really this low point for wrestling, one of their lowest points. And then they come back after COVID when they're allowed to have live shows again and people in the arenas. Triple H, I think, really has been doing a good job of building that story. Cody Rhodes came back from AEW. He left WWE, helped build AEW, built a reputation there, comes back to WWE, and his story has been building over the last 2 years of taking out Roman Reigns, who is one of the longest holding titles at the time. He wins the Royal Rumble this year, Rhodes does, to do it back-to-back years. He won last year.
First time since Steve Austin, baby.
I want to say somewhere around 26 years. I don't remember the exact year. It's like 25 to 27. I'm just saying 26 because I like that number, obviously.
26 years.
Yeah. But, yeah, since Steve Austin did over 20 years ago, he's the first one in over 20 years to win back-to-back Rumbles, which earns him the right to go on to WrestleMania. He makes this big show of, he's going to challenge Reigns, finish his story. This is the son of Dusty Rhodes. So huge legacy going against Reigns, who's a part of the Rock's family, the NOI family, that Rhodes has stated
so
they're not the only royal family in wrestling. So you got this big rivalry going, and then in comes The Rock.
Rocky sucks. Rocky sucks.
He's now going to headline Mania. Well, we don't know yet. There's been the whole weekend long, there's been a huge hashtag We Want Cody, where Cody came out on SmackDown Friday, says he's not going to face Reigns at Mania, brings out The Rock, who's saying he's going to face Reigns at Mania.
Well, he doesn't say anything.
He doesn't say anything.
He just stares him
He's
down.
just staring at him. But he made a big deal in the first Raw of the year that he was coming after Reigns, and now they're basically like everybody's like, oh, it's Rock versus Reigns now. And people are pissed because The Rock hasn't earned it. He basically has become a member of the board, has shoehorned his way into the storyline.
That was kind of what was breaking over the way. Basically, all of this to say that not only was this a great Vices topic for our guilty pleasure,
we caught it right in time.
We caught it in the time that it's been the most controversial.
Fans are livid. They are like, it's the biggest turn against The Rock I've ever seen. In fact, Michael Cole, even on SmackDown, said, "Is this 1997?"
Yeah,
because that was when Rock first was a heel. And he's not been a heel in years because The Rock's got this pristine image that he's the people's champion.
No, he's the people's chump.
They booed him. They booed him on Raw. Like they literally they showed the clip of Rock.
That's what they want.
And people boo. They
that's
hate
what everybody's
him.
saying.
Well, that's what they're hoping.
Well, here's the thing.
They're hoping it's a workup, but I think Rock is really going to fight Reigns.
No,
at WrestleMania.
I do too. I do too. I mean, look,
he thinks he's the big draw.
What they're thinking is, so a lot of the news started to break over the weekend after SmackDown last Friday. That when The Rock came out and did the stare down, and Cody pretty much just said, I'm not going to... He said, I'm going to fight you, Reigns. I'm coming to take all of it, everything you have.
But not at
WrestleMania. So he leaves the ring. Of course, there's this loud pop with The Rock coming out. And at first, you're kind of into it because you're like, oh, man, it is The Rock. This is awesome. And then you're starting to think about it, and you're like, this is terrible. It's like there's no reason for him to have abdicated that opportunity to The Rock. It doesn't match anything that the whole storyline of Cody Rhodes' entire mantra has been finish his story. And so throughout the whole year, this has been the build-up. For them to and then it started to trickle out over the weekend that apparently when The Rock was coming aboard to sign with them, he was also putting into the contract that he would be mainlining WrestleMania.
In order to get him on the board, he said they had to let him have Mania, which he hasn't earned. And on top of that, the Reigns storyline is played out. People are tired of him being he's been for over 3 years, and there's this theory going on that they want him to beat Hulk Hogan's record.
I don't even. The Rock is the only name that you've mentioned that I know.
Yeah.
I quit watching wrestling in high school,
and here's
so
the
I have
problem.
no idea.
Sean, you're who they're going after.
Yes,
they want you back at WrestleMania.
That's why
with The
fans
Rock.
are ticked because they feel like they're going after the casual fans who grew up in the Attitude Era to get them to tune in. Now, mind you, the highest ratings that WWE's had in years. They're already selling out of Mania tickets. They didn't need to bring The Rock in to boost ratings, but that's why fans are pissed because they feel like they're selling out the fans who are watching week to week for the people who only know who The Rock is.
Right.
And on top of that, his family, his daughter was just made GM of NXT. They're bringing Nia Jax.
What the hell's that?
It's
what's NXT?
Yeah, Raw, NXT, and SmackDown.
NXT.
It's where they basically train wrestlers to be of the caliber of WWE.
Next.
So it's kind of
Gotcha.
So they. And then
you're right. That's it.
It is. That's exactly what it is.
It also kind of used to be the training ground for what I would say it was kind of Triple H.
Yeah, he
Paul
created NXT.
He created NXT as more of a way for I think to compete with on a broader scale something like a local regional OVW.
It was mainly to compete directly with AEW at the time.
Well, AEW wasn't even around when NXT.
Well, when they rebranded it, when it came around,
I was saying because NXT existed well before AEW.
They rebranded NXT because it used to be more like a game show, and then they rebranded it to be like this developmental thing. Because
I'm pretty sure. Didn't Daniel Bryan come up through NXT?
I think so.
Yeah, that was long before AEW.
Again, Mania 30, but yeah.
But I loosely, I may be off on this. I don't want to get any real wrestling fans like mad at me because I dip in and out all the time. But I also know enough to know when not only is a storyline being played out, but when because a lot of this is harkened back to times that the WWE has done this in the past.
Yes,
they pretty much liken this to a moment where Hulk Hogan came back in WrestleMania 9, and he kind of forced his way back in because
he stole the Mania from was it Bret Hart?
I think it was Bret Hart at the time.
I knew it was a Hart, but I think it was Bret Hart. Yeah.
And so then they liken it to The Rock doing it. I think again he did this before.
He stole. That's why CM Punk originally.
That's
left,
what it
because
was.
he came in and he stole it from CM Punk, and then now he's coming back to do it again.
But it's like even if you don't know all of the drama, it's kind of interesting because it's. Right now was a great time to jump back in because you have the in-ring drama of the story going on and the real-world drama that is taking precedent.
I think a lot of people are pointing at how, like, when The Rock was part of the Fast and the Furious franchise and his ego about he had to be center stage, and a lot of people took his side at the time because it's like Vin Diesel and Tyrese Gibson. What else do they have but they obviously needed The Rock more than The Rock needed Fast and the Furious. But then you get to Black Adam and DC, where again his ego he wanted DC to be formed around Black Adam, which made no sense.
Well, and you also look at the Fast and the Furious franchise and what happened, like even with Hobbs and Shaw, and it's like it wasn't as big a hit as they expected it to be. And the franchise, he ended up leaving Fast and the Furious because he was at creative odds, and they weren't going his route.
Now he's coming back because look,
need a paycheck.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where fans are now like where they were on The Rock's side. They're beginning to see a trend of maybe The Rock's ego really is that big, where he feels like he's the main draw of no matter what he does.
He was the highest paid actor in Hollywood.
Yeah, he was
for a while.
2 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
Or last year.
And I mean,
even?
that makes sense. He was a huge draw, but I think it built his ego so much that now he thinks that no matter what he touches, fans will just love him and eat it up. But when you come in the middle of a storyline and take it from somebody who already deserves it, it really ticked fans off. And the problem is, again, it's like he's setting up each of his family. His daughter is made GM. Nia Jax, who's his cousin, is now getting a lot of a big major storyline bump. There's fears of what might happen with the bloodline, which is his family. That's where Roman Reigns is. His whole family is huge right now, and he has 5 family members that are part of the WWE right now.
Legitimate family members?
No, legitimate. They're all related. They're up there. It's the NOIE family. That they're all members of this family, dating back from like. His father, who was a wrestler.
He was Rocky Maivia.
Yeah.
And I mean, when he first came out, before he became
his father was a wrestler. So
that's where he got his start.
And even before then, and that was part of what like Rhodes had said about there's more than one royal family in wrestling. You have the Rhodes, you have, the Rock's family, the Harts, the Ortons, the McMahons who built WWE.
We can't talk about them now.
No. They're in a lot of trouble.
I did hear about that.
Well, and some people, there's a lot of people who think also part of this is to take that, because that headline's gone now. It's like they got the McMahon headline out of the news by doing this.
By doing this.
Well, and just like you pointed out, Sean, you said, they're eating this up. They want the PR surrounding, because look, yes, bad PR.
Well, it's
still
like
PR.
When I was watching wrestling, it was Steve Austin and Vince McMahon always button heads, and it was like they're not really pissed at each other. That's just the story that they're doing for fans. Like, it's not like he's really going to fire Steve Austin if he doesn't do these things. And it's
a lot of this has been likened to who I just brought up, the Daniel Bryan instance, because Daniel Bryan was not. He was a baby face, but he was too short, he wasn't stout. He wasn't a typical wrestler build. And so the idea was that, he could never be champion. And so it kind of started as a fan movement of the fans like clinging on to him and liking him, sort of in the same way that Cody Rhodes has really built this fan base from scratch of just getting out there, talking to fans and actually signing autographs, like doing the real on the ground work.
Yeah.
And the way the Daniel Bryan movement kind of worked out was that they embraced the fact that the crowd was behind him, And the whole chant, you may have known this. I don't know if you do or not, Sean. When everybody started doing the yes, 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 yes chant, you probably have no clue.
No clue.
But like the thing is that whole chant and that whole uprise to lead him to being champion was a huge victory for the fans. And I will say this. It's not that the Cody Rhodes story is over, and there have been alluding to the fact that, I mean, again, this is just other PR, because they do care.
They do.
If the fans are upset.
Oh, they said they're closely monitoring it. This is exactly what they want, because it is stirring up.
They want it
attention.
for both. They want it for both aspects. They want it to be able to stir the pot to get the attention off of the bad news.
Just looking at Cody Rhodes, I didn't know who he was.
Yeah.
He looks like
See,
Billy Idol on steroids.
Yeah.
He does actually.
He does. I love me some Cody.
But it's like it's like they definitely are wanting both aspects of this. They're wanting to draw eyeballs away from the Vince McMahon controversy and the Brock Lesnar and all that nasty, dirty laundry. But then they're also wanting to put the focus on, okay, we don't want to piss them off so much that, we start losing house seats or people stop buying tickets, because if we do piss them off to the extent that it's like, they don't want to come back, that is going to hurt their bottom dollar. But of course, if you're talking about it in terms of where, look, I'm all about the WWE actually being creative in the aspect of breaking the fourth wall, and really pissing fans off to garner real reactions, to the point where you're even invested in it. Like, you're passionate about it, and this is not, this isn't something that you're like back in the Attitude Era where it's like clearly nobody would be allowed to go in there and beat their boss's ass, and still have a job the next week. But it's like there's something about. Are they gonna? Is it really gonna pan out? Because that's what we've heard from Cody. We've heard it from Triple H. We've heard it from instances of just give us. You're gonna like
Triple
where this.
H, huh? He's got to be 60 years old.
He's not wrestling anymore.
No,
he's strictly behind the scenes.
He runs. He basically has McMahon's job now. He runs the bookings and the day to day and how because
I'm just so far.
He married Stephanie McMahon, and he's taken over.
That was back in the Attitude Era when they got married.
He's taken over basically the role that McMahon had, and it's fun because people they're thinking a lot of this are hopeful.
What about his son? What about Sean?
Shane McMahon?
Shane.
No, they had a huge falling out, and he has nothing to do with wrestling anymore. Nothing to do with it? Okay. Yeah, like a real actual falling out, not just a staged falling out.
Okay.
But they're hoping this is a huge workup. What fans are most concerned about is they know this is more or less a workup, and that Rhodes at some point is going to take the title from Reigns. That seems pretty inevitable. What fans are upset about is it looks like it's likely not going to happen at Mania, and that's why they're mad, because they think he deserved that spot at Mania. It looks like it might happen later on down the line in the year, and that
let's
just kind of has
rubbed
fans the wrong way.
What would you if we get to Dune and we go to see Dune in theaters on premiere night, and a splash screen comes up and says, you got to wait till July. You're not going to watch Dune 2 tonight. You got to wait another 6 months.
Ticked,
You'd be super pissed because it's like you're delaying this again.
Yeah.
Like when I'm like my appetite is ready for it.
It feels like you got the rug pulled out from under you. It's like they're saying, "Oh, this might happen at SummerSlam." It's like that's fine. That's in July, but it's like Mania is the biggest stage.
Exactly. And nobody wants to wait another year if they drag it out that long. And that's the real thing is, does this really have enough gas to get us through another year? This same story arc that you just beautifully told. So look, it's a great time to get back into wrestling. I didn't think the whole conversation
I was actually
going to revolve
discuss
around
some other sports
Cody Rhodes, but we've ate up all the time.
Yeah, we did.
Because honestly, I would have loved to have dove back into like the Attitude Era. With you, Sean.
I mean, I watched it when I was in high school, and I watched it when the Ultimate Warrior and Hulk Hogan and all of them were on there.
Oh, yeah, that's early 90s,
mid-90s. That's the only two times that I've
era.
watched it was those two. And I recently did sign up for Peacock so that I could go back and watch the old stuff.
Yeah.
But I have not watched anything remotely recent. Like I went back and started watching the beginning of Hulkamania, and me and Sawyer watched like one match with Steve Austin.
Oh,
like
nice.
we watched one thing.
Man,
I don't remember
he's
what it was.
got so many good moments week to week.
but
when you hear that glass break and the crowd pops,
it's really funny because I didn't intend to make this to get back into it the way I have as a weekly thing, but
it obviously sounds like a vice. So
it's a huge one now.
It's turned
picked
into
a good
it.
one. Yeah.
And honestly, like, Cody Rhodes is a big reason why I have stuck around weekly. Like, I wasn't expecting it, but I was just like, yeah, he won me over.
Yeah.
Well, and I also think too, it's become something of not only because even before this controversy started, like I said, I usually follow. I wasn't planning on watching it week to week like I have been because the controversies helped that, which is exactly what they want.
Yeah.
But I was definitely planning on watching Rumble, and another big one they have is Elimination Chamber, and those are two big events before the big one, WrestleMania. And this happens every year. I watch WrestleMania, I maybe watch a couple of Raws after that, and then I dip back out.
Yeah.
But I will say one good thing they do, and they know this, they know their bread and butter is WrestleMania. That's why they build up to it. But they know that ultimately people are going to kind of dip in and out, and they do good recaps of the stories. So if you were hesitant to jump back in, I know you're probably not going to dive right in like we have, but you could probably watch a current, like even a Raw from last week or even Royal Rumble, and they'll play like a sizzle reel of everything that's been built up.
All the pay-per-view events have like really good like kind of recaps on the story.
Are those all included in Peacock, or do you still have to pay?
Okay. Raw and
extra?
SmackDown aren't on Peacock until
weird.
like 4 weeks later. But yeah, all the pay-per-view events are free on Peacock. As soon as they're live, you can watch them live on Peacock, and then
So then you've got to watch the other. You got to watch Monday Night Raw, and
you'd have to watch.
You got to watch that on cable.
Yeah, you have to watch USA is Raw. Now Fox is obviously over the air because it's just
and that's
a regular
SmackDown,
network, and that's SmackDown on Friday.
But they did announce starting next year, Raw is going to be
Netflix.
It's no longer going to be on USA. It's going to be live on Netflix every Monday night.
Yep, that was a big story. That
was a huge.
I think
Really?
we briefly talked about it last week.
I didn't know Netflix had any live.
They don't. This will be their first.
No,
they
have. They've done live comedy specials. In fact, Chris Rock was the first one that they did it with.
I didn't know that.
They did an actual live. He was like the first one they trialed it with.
So it'd be interesting to see how that all works out. But
But it is.
I definitely fell hard back into wrestling.
I will say
you got the shirt. Yeah, I guess.
I don't like the fact though, and this actually comes from the last time I
was getting ready to ask if y'all went. Did y'all like get together and go?
No, but we are going.
We are going. We are going Lexington on Monday.
Oh, is it?
There's a Raw.
There's a Raw Monday Night Raw.
It was completely spur of the moment. It cost $100
out of
for
pocket.
each ticket.
Yes.
Yeah. Holy crap!
Well, actually, the tickets were $70, but with the
parking,
parking and Ticketmaster's
fees,
fees, that was worse than the parking. I said, good lord!
And I actually bought this shirt. I went to a Raw and Monday Night Raw in Cincinnati like back in 2018, and I bought this shirt from their store to celebrate that. And I was like, well, I still got a shirt, so I don't have to buy nothing else.
We were watching Raw, and then Brandon's like, man, I haven't been in forever. It'd be awesome. And then he looked and said, there's one in Lexington.
And I looked it up that night.
Is that Rupp?
And it's at Rupp Arena, and it's on.
Man,
it's
gonna be tight.
Plus, it's the road to WrestleMania.
Although they redid the seating.
They don't have bleachers anymore.
They have actual blue seats.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they redid that a couple years ago.
Okay,
but no, we also got there is June 7th. They'll be here for SmackDown.
SmackDown will
in
be
Louisville
here
at
the Yum Center.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a Friday night.
So if you want to dive back in, maybe get ready. You can.
We got till June.
I'm not paying $100 to go see wrestling. So. No,
it's gonna be a fun.
I can think of a lot better things to spend $100 on.
But
I had the money and I said, why not?
It'll be a good time.
Maybe I'll meet Rhea Ripley and then my life will be complete.
Is that a midget?
He likes the goth girl.
Yeah, she's only in the ring.
Look her up. Outside I want to see Sean's.
What's her name?
Rhea Ripley. Outside of the ring,
RHEA.
because if you see her without all the goth makeup and stuff, like she's good looking. Well, I think she's good looking.
No, I think she's cute. Sean's.
Becky Lynch is hot though.
I think she is.
You'll like Becky Lynch more, Sean, because you like the redheads.
She's married to Seth Rollins. She's got a thick, heavy Irish accent too.
It's funny because
I got his reaction. Yeah. He immediately was like, "What?"
That's a dude.
No, you gotta look up the
non-makeup.
She is very muscular.
Very muscular.
She's also got.
She's all muscular.
She's Irish too.
She looks like a freaking clown.
She's from Australia.
Oh, Australia.
Yeah, because the elimination thing is going to be.
Dude, that picture right there. I'm waiting.
Show the camera.
I can't get my tablet up here. I'm waiting for her to go. Love that Joker.
Oh yeah,
like she looks like a clown.
Actually, right there. Yeah.
Here you go. Well, she's got sunglasses on. There's a picture
Hold
where
on,
she's not
hold on.
all
You gotta show
in the
the-
bikini. Look at that.
Oh.
I think she looks fine there.
I get it, but her arms are as big
You
as
gotta
my
show
head.
the camera. Show the camera.
That
I don't. I'm not
Oh,
interested
she's all
in.
tatted. I didn't know she was that tatted.
yeah,
up.
she's tatted.
No.
It
up.
was out of focus.
Yeah, it is. I can't help that one. She, yeah.
Alrighty, guys.
I'm okay. She
We
could
gotta
break
end this
me
show.
in half, and I'd be all right with it.
That's obviously you want a
The
woman
other-
that can manhandle you.
The other thing I don't like is because it's kind of split all over the place because you've got Raw and SmackDown because they have their cable deals or their network deals. They don't air except for on Hulu the next day. And then, like, I think on Peacock where all of the stuff is, all their past and current pay-per-view events are.
Times that come on Monday
8.
and Friday.
8 both
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
No, Friday's 2 hours, Monday's 3 hours.
Yeah, Raw's 3
Oh my
hours long.
God.
It goes 8 to
No,
11.
and I'll be honest
It's
with
mostly
you.
ads. It's like 2 hours
Yes.
of show and an hour of ads. It's awful.
That's
Wow.
the other good thing about going live is like you're in the middle of a match and they don't fade to black and go to an ad.
Yeah.
And it's like sometimes they'll do a split screen on an ad where you still see the match going on
Yeah.
while the ad's playing.
Yeah.
And it's nice, but it's like it is. The 3
That's
hours.
what's going to make Raw and Netflix better is you don't have to sit through ads.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully. I don't know. With it being live, maybe they still have ads. That'll tick me off.
But ultimately, it's weird because you can go on Peacock to get all the past content plus the pay-per-view events. But yeah, you can't see the current Raw and current SmackDown unless you actually get on like Hulu and subscribe to it. It's crazy. Or watch it live. But all right, that's gonna do it for this.
We've gone over. We've
We
gone
went
over.
way too much into wrestling. All right, well, you can clearly tell it's a vice.
Yeah.
Sorry if you were bored out of your mind. I like Brian's comment. I think Brian's right. Maybe we do need to do because this will definitely be a Sean.
Does Brian want to go to
conversation.
SmackDown in June?
Hey,
He watches. I don't think he's been into it like we have lately, but I know he watches.
It'd probably be like if you put those tickets on a bid website, you could get it for cheaper. But no,
Auction site.
actually, yeah, because Sean, you just got a nice humidor on a bid site.
Well, he got a really nice.
Well,
humidor.
yeah. Sometimes it works out for you in the end. Because,
Yeah.
Better than you expect.
yeah, exactly.
What did Brian say? We didn't even.
He said another vice is auction sites,
Oh,
like bidding
okay,
on stuff.
okay.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
That would be a good vice. Because sometimes you can just go down that rabbit hole of like, oh yeah, I'll take that.
Yep.
Ooh, I didn't.
No,
need
it is. It is a. It is a good one.
All right,
Maybe next Vice.
let's lock it in the memory hole for the next
The
time.
memory hole. I like it.
Alrighty, guys, that's gonna do it for this episode of the RM Podcast.
Yeah.
Like, share, subscribe on all of our social media networks right there at the bottom of your screen. Red Moon Book on Facebook, Red Moon Tweet on X, Red Moon Pics on Instagram, and of course, search for Red Moon Productions on YouTube and on Rumble. We appreciate all the love. And Sean, because you have that sultry voice,
That's right.
I want you to read the email tonight.
What email?
That email, you know, that
Tell them what the
way
email
you,
is.
Oh, yeah.
You reach out to us?
Yeah, you're talking about RMPodcast at redmoonproductions.com.
Whoo, man.
It sounds pretty bad.
Hopefully
I
you don't
sound
have-
like my 5th grade bus driver that died of smoking cancer. Like, yeah,
Got
that's
lung
what I sound
cancer
like.
over there.
Lung cancer from
I
smoking.
love you, darling.
Say it like you're Optimus Prime.
I
Do
can't.
that.
That's literally like the talking tonight it's going away.
It's
again.
made it worse.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
He's pulled one for the team.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah, I mean, a cigar probably didn't help. But
And
what are
the
you going
coffee
to do?
probably didn't help either, even though it's hot.
Yeah.
It's probably not soothing. Should have given you some tea.
Soothing.
Ooh. All right, that's gonna do it for this episode. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We don't have a movie yet to review. It's gonna be one of the Oscar noms.
Yeah, I
next
thought
week.
it was
I think either Zone of Interest,
Well, that one we haven't found yet.
American Fiction.
So
American Fiction,
that one has a legit, and so does Poor Things.
legit what?
A legit
Screener.
Screener. American Fiction and Poor Things are the two that have solid screeners.
I'm okay with either one of those.
So,
Do y'all want to decide right now?
do you want to get American Fiction
Let's
out of the
do
way?
that.
Let's do it.
I think I
American
should.
Fiction next week. That's what we're
There we go.
reviewing.
There we go.
Alrighty, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of the Red Moon Podcast. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Until next time, I'm one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host.
Sean Sebastian.
And
Autobots.
We want Cody.
Roll out.
There you go. That sounded good.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. For more reviews, previous podcast shows, and everything Red Moon, visit our website, redmoonproductions.com. You can also like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter by searching for Red Moon Productions, LLC. We'll see you at the movies.